So we're going to see our birds of prey are sort of unique, and what do they use? What sense on their maybe hinted at in the picture? What might they use to find that prey? Yeah?
Their eyes.
Exactly, their eyes. And so that's one of our characteristics of raptors, is that they're going to have forward-facing eyes. We like to say eyes in the front, ready to hunt, eyes on the side, run and hide, right? Because eyes on the side have a greater degree of vision to see predators, but these guys honed in on their prey, right? So we have big old eyes. What's something else you see on this screen that might be a little different from other birds? Maybe about their beak. Yeah, it's curved. It's very pointed at the end, right? And does anybody know what that's for? Yeah?
It's to protect it.
Yeah, so rip and tear the meat. You're doing great. It's to rip and tear the meat, right? Because other birds, you know, think of hummingbirds, they don't need that. They're just drinking nectar, so they have that long beak. So these guys are specialized for ripping and tearing, right? Well, I'll give you a hint about the next characteristic we have. The word raptor actually comes from the Latin word raptere, which means to seize. So what are these guys going to use to seize and grab their prey? Their claws, yeah, their talons. And so I have a big gold eagle right here. We can really see that nice big talon. On a good day, I could maybe squeeze my fist with about 80 to 100 pounds per square inch of grip force. And you know, that might be hyping myself up a little bit, but how much do you guys think that this little eagle can grip? If the average person can maybe get 60 to 100. Any guesses? 300? Anyone higher or lower? It's a little bit higher. It's a little bit higher. 301? We've been doing that for a while because it's 2,000. So you guys have 2,000 pounds per square inch of grip force. Did you get it right in the back?
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, so these guys are built for grabbing season, right? That's what they need. They're grabbing their prey. So again, all of these sort of adaptations. And lastly, we discussed this. They're going to eat some meat, right? These guys aren't eating salads or candy bars. They're going to eat their meat, and they're going to eat meat of live prey. So we have our four characteristics. We have eyesight, curved beak, strong talons, and a diet of meat, right? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, let's hear it. So now that we've sort of talked about what a raptor is and what the TRC does and who we are here, we'll play a short little video. Actually, wait a minute. Let's ID some. So we have 6 main groups. So can anybody tell me what this sort of raptor group would be? Yeah, it's an owl. How about this one? Hawks, yeah. And this one?
Falcons.
Falcons. I guess we got some falcon lovers over there. Yeah? Yeah?
Bald eagle.
Yeah, so these are going to be your eagles, which is bald angled eagles. And so how about this guy?
Vulture.
Yeah, vulture. And last one?
Osprey.
Osprey. You guys are on it. Let me see your contract here. You start small. We'll play a short little video and then we'll get into our live ambassadors. Is everybody ready to be some live ambassadors?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wife Margaret, over 30 years ago, we had a plan and a vision simply to keep wild birds wild. Today, you get to experience how this vision and dream came true. I really look forward to sharing this with you. So, in 2008, Teton Raptor Center began leasing a couple of old ranch buildings here at the Hardeman Barns and Meadows. In 2017, we purchased a 27-acre parcel protected by a conservation easement, and embarked on site improvements to create what you are experiencing here today. Our nonprofit's mission of raptor conservation is threefold: education, research, and medical rehabilitation. Our campus supports these 3 pillars, bringing together community and conservation. Raptors are at the core of our work. First, birds, especially raptors, are key indicators of ecosystem health. They connect us to other communities, cultures, countries, and even continents. And perhaps most of all, they inspire awe, imagination, and wonder. So, join me as we tour our campus. This is the Roost, home to our avian ambassadors, the team of birds that we partner with to provide our educational programs. They are all with us full-time, 365 days a year, and each has their own enclosure that is specific to their needs. Each enclosure has a sand floor for easy cleaning and a variety of perching and natural materials. This 10-foot wide hallway doubles as an exercise and enrichment space for our ambassador birds. The roost also has its own food prep area and office. This is our historic pump house, which dates back to the early 1940s. This building was rehabilitated to serve as a support space. Our clinic is easily our most state-of-the-art building, where expert medical care is provided daily for injured, ill, and orphaned raptors and corvids from around Wyoming and Idaho. We have an exam room with diagnostic equipment and treatment tools, along with a digital X-ray room and an intensive care unit, where birds can receive supplemental oxygen as part of their care. Off of the clinic is our patient care unit, where birds that are advancing into recovery are housed in larger enclosures. And the last stop on a patient's rehabilitative journey is our flight barn. This unique and transformative space allows these raptors to practice flying. In order to return to the wild, each patient must demonstrate that they are capable of capturing live prey. Our flight barn's unique design is a central partition with sliding doors that allow for a race course style space for birds to bank turns and increase their maneuverability. Now that you've seen where the birds live, let's talk about our skilled and dedicated team of staff and volunteers. We have 2 units of workforce housing on site, enabling us to provide secure housing for staff and interns, a critical need in our community. Our research team calls the conservation barn home. Once a dirt floor horse barn, today this building is a vibrant space for our innovative group of conservation biologists. We conduct studies that help us understand what raptors need to survive and thrive. Our headquarters is home to our administrative team and a hub for our staff and volunteers to collaborate. The building, like the rest of our campus, has many sustainable design elements. The Solar Pavilion is a wonderful outdoor program area that also generates energy for our campus. Finally, the historic Mosley Hardeman Barn, an icon of Wilson, Wyoming for over 80 years. Teton Raptor Center lovingly restored this barn and opened the doors in June 2023 as a space for community, collaboration, and conservation. Inside, you'll experience our nature shop along with the learning lab and a soaring loft for exploring the wonderful world of raptors. This is our campus, our home for world-class raptor conservation, right here in Jackson and in the heart of the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. It is a dream come true for all of us who have been involved in this project, and we're thrilled to share it with you.
We hope you enjoyed some meditation there. That's the glorious thing about autoplay, right? So just really quick, before we get our first bird out, I thought we'd just go around this really quick. Photos are absolutely encouraged, just please keep the flash off so that they feel calm and safe. And calm bodies make a calm bird, right? So the stiller we can be and the more calm that we can be as an audience, the better our bird will be in educating and entertaining you guys. So we super appreciate you. So anybody have any questions before we get to our first bird? Awesome. Have a good one.
All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you. I think a little hand of applause to this. With us for the summers from last year wildlife program at University of Georgia in Athens. If anyone knows that area. But that's our future, right? You guys, the young generations coming up that understand and care and deeply want to understand what conservation means. I'm Roger Smith. Again, I've been studying these raptors for well over 40 years now in this valley from Montana, but well, there's a real deep understanding of one thing, and that is how little we know, right? After 40 some years of true field research, we don't know a lot. We do know that these raptors have big talons. They have a curved beak. They only eat meat, right? Miles got us there. And the last piece is really what is going on inside the brain of these predatory birds. that we share the world with. They're all around us. And I wanted to share the very first bird. Is an area that we're in, and this is what we call the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. The blue and the yellow, you all, is over 23 billion acres of public land. These are forests, national parks, refuges, all intact and connected. It's the last remaining piece in the lower 48 like this. So these are lands that we all own. We all have a say in what happens to these public lands. And this is where we do our work. This is where raptors are living. And the first one to share with you, which is so near and dear to my heart, are the peregrine falcons. Well, and anyone, when I ask a question, give me a short raise of hand, not of eyes. Anyone seen these before? Yeah, a few of you. Terrific. You all, this is an extraordinary animal. This is not only the fastest animal on the planet, okay? And I'll explain that in a minute. It has a wing that is perhaps the most elegant structure in all of nature. All of our airplanes, particularly the jet fighters, are all modeled after this wing right here. So we have brought it into the human and I'm always going to let this bird talk, okay? And not read me an interruption. This is Violet. Violet is a female peregrine falcon. The males are much smaller and most all raptors. The birds that have to kill things, right? That's what we're talking about, and I'll keep reminding us of that. This is a big, beautiful female, and the male would be almost not quite half this size. Okay? And then throughout the program, we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Why are females much bigger, almost by half? They weigh more, they can fly faster, etc. But a quick story here. Well, this is just pure elegance. Okay? Here's a bird that you all belongs to the group of raptors that you saw. There's 6 different groups, and there's 30 different types. Okay? Let's pretend for one moment, just pretend we're at a big round table, but they're all raptors. And they're looking at each other across the table going, holy cow, we have to kill things. That's our job. How are we going to all get along? Okay? Here's what the peregrine, sitting at the table, said, you know what? I got an idea. I'm watching all you eagles and hawks, vultures, trying to eat something off the ground. Right? Going to chase a bunny, chase a little ground squirrel. I got a better idea. How about this? I'm going to fly at 2,000 feet and look for little birds below. Let's call it a little barn swallow. They're that big. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly, tuck my body into this incredible missile shape, and drop at 240 miles an hour. Fastest moving animal on the planet. And dive down, come down on this little poor bird that has no idea what's about to happen, and has to come on sort of a flat, bunch up these long finger-like feet, and punch the little bird. Now the bird's spinning out of the air, going, oh my gosh, what happened? Now this peregrine has to turn at about 12 Gs. We have any pilots in here that probably almost ripped my arms off. I've got to turn. Now I'm going to grab that little bird that's spiraling out with these feet. I can't crush it. Can't squeeze it to death. Don't have those feet. Look at those. Thank you. Bye. That was perfect. Yeah, we talked about that before. So now I've got this little bird in my feet. Now I'm going to pluck it, feather by feather, in the air while I'm flying. Yep, see? And then I still have to find a way to kill this poor little bird. I have a notch in my beak. You know, I have a parakeet, they have the same. Anyway, I'm gonna put that notch right in their in the spine and twist. That's the only way I can kill a prey if I'm a parrot. Then I'm gonna eat it like a lollipop in the air. That's a falcon. Okay? That's what's going on inside. No other birds doing that. Okay? What was the idea? Find a place to find prey with no competition. Make sense? Perfect. You guys, what an amazing, elegant strategy to exist on this planet. And the whole idea, the superpower is speed. Speed and these incredible eyes that allow what you and I don't have, two abilities to focus in each eye. They have a telephoto lens and a macro in each eye. Otherwise, I'm going at 240 and I have a bird that's moving. How am I supposed to keep all that in track? I can say it sort of in a sort of physiological, but I still don't understand it. I couldn't imagine for a day having an eye that allowed me to do that. So that's part of the falcon world. And we also know that peregrines have a unique place to live. Remember the round table. What can I do that I don't have to compete with anyone else? So, next question at the table. Does anyone want to live up on a cliff? Nope. Perfect. And it's also a safe place. No coyotes, wolves, bears, or anything's going to come up on the cliff. Okay? And anyone? It's the little red dot. It's terrible. There's the nest. They're on a scrape. They don't even build a nest. Little peregrines are just going to fly into these steep cliff walls, lay their eggs right on the cliff, right? And we call that a scrape. Okay? Again, we're trying to get inside the mind of this beyond beautifully gorgeous bird. Okay, now we're on a cliff. We're going to lay our egg right on the rock. What shape ought that egg be? A, round, or B, really oblong? Oblong, yes? How come? It's going to roll in a circle. All peregrines, all raptors are turning, all birds are turning their eggs during the incubation phase. If that egg were round, I don't think we'd have falcons around today, right? The eggs would just keep, it's like, oh, darn, they rolled off again. We got to figure this out, okay? Another little adaptation to these birds. The problem was, given that strategy, is back in the late 50s, 60s, some of you probably in this room know, a beautiful book called Silent Spring by Rachel Carson was all about how pesticides were entering our environment. This was back right when I was born, back in the mid-50s. And it was called DDT. And I know you all have heard of it. And it's a good thing to read up again about, because it's still in the environment. But here's what was happening. We were spraying, it came from World War II, and we applied it into the agricultural field, which I probably would have done. And what was happening is it was being sprayed, and some little birds were eating the seeds. Who loves to eat birds? The falcons. The peregrine is a bird specialist. That's about all they're going to eat. Okay? So now they're getting the pesticide. It was causing a problem with depositing calcium to make the egg. Okay? But they were still hatching. But now the eggshells were super thin. And that's okay, unless you're laying your egg on a what? On a rock. Yeah, essentially sandpaper. And they're turning them. And east of the Mississippi, we lost almost the entire population of peregrine falcons. It took 2 biologists, not 100, and a whole bunch of citizens like us, all a bunch of bird geeks like us going, you heard Violet here a minute ago. No one was hearing it, and no one was seeing it. All these cliffs, with their binoculars, every year we go to the same place, they're not here. And it took that effort to then bring this bird back. So it's a beautiful conservation success story on how a bird get into trouble. And I bring it up because the same with the Raptor Center, we are looking for answers and solutions. We're not sort of all upset and wrapped up about the past. I probably didn't know any better than anyone else. Now we know these kinds of things. We still know issues are happening. But what are the answers? What are the solutions? And as biologists, that's our job here. And we'd love any of you to get engaged and involved. If you have curiosity, that's all we're asking for to the general public, is to have curiosity along with it. Any thoughts on peregrines, real quick, please?
How does Dylan get the bird to stay on his seat?
Okay. Great question. Dylan?
Yeah, definitely. So how do we get these birds to stay on our hands? Or more so, mine. So when it comes to our birds, we actually spend hours upon hours training them. So that's actually my job, is working with these guys to get them confident in these programs. So the way that we do that is, you notice those big pieces of food that she was eating earlier? So when we were giving her food, she's like, okay, this is the best place to be. I'm getting all this free food, but also I'm getting a stable perch as part of that. So when we're training raptors, kind of two things that they're gonna look for is a stable perch and also free food and easy access to it. So essentially to Violet, I'm pretty much a glorified tree branch that delivers food. So not a name for a trainer, but anyways, that's how we get her to be here on Glove, but also we really pride ourselves in making sure that our ambassadors are confident in these programs as well too.
So you're going to use the thing or your hand at all?
So I don't have it where she's secured. So with her, the only stuff that I'm using here are Jess's and a leash. But as you can see, they're pretty loose, so it's where she's choosing to be on Glove. I'm not forcing her to do so. So all this gear is removable. The only reason why we have it here during this program is since there's a lot of you in here, and also these raptors up here are quite unsafe for raptors, we just have this on during programs like this. But she's trained to let me actually take these off and also touch her talons without it being adverse for her as well too. So hopefully, does that answer your question? Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Come on, curiosity, let's hear it.
Was Violet injured? Is she going to be released, and where would you release her?
Thank you, great question. Yep, so all of our avian ambassadors, we look at Violet here as a pure equal to us. Violet came from a retired falconry program, of which I have been as well. So a perfectly healthy flighted bird. Some of our birds, which you will meet, have not had that opportunity. They have been sort of hit by vehicles, hit windows, lose eyesight. Violet is a perfectly healthy bird. Violet and her partner, a male, Horace, are both with us. And the falconer was a gentleman up in Belgrade, Montana, one Montanans, who I've known, and he said, I'm retiring. Would you like these two beautiful birds? Great question. Thank you. So if a bird is in our ambassador program, they have sustained some permanent injury and cannot be released. Yeah. Hope that answers. In the back.
Sorry if I missed this before. What is the average life expectancy? And also, are they birds that partner up for life, or do they, go out and meet other people or other birds?
Yeah,
These little guys, yeah.
yes. Off-site, you mean off? I missed the last part.
Sorry, so do they mate for life, or?
I'm sorry. Great question. Okay, you all, this is great, right? Because now you head in the back, you're gonna say, okay, cut this guy off. They do mate for life, okay? And that happens right up until the day one partner is gone, okay? And within a day or two of our research, there's another mate. Okay, mate for life, yes. However, if it's a red-tailed nest and the male was injured, hit by another bird, maybe hit by a car, and another male's flying around going, if I grab a mouse and I take it to Sally, I bet I'm in. And that is what we see within sometimes hours, days. Yeah, so good question on that. And the other question too on that.
Life expectancy.
Oh, life expectancy, yeah. So in all raptors, It's a really hard light. Okay, so even a peregrine flying up high, diving on birds, 3 out of 10 times. We're gonna miss 7 times. A red tail on a pole is gonna try to grab a little mouse and miss 6 out of 10. And they're gonna crash and burn. You're gonna watch it and go, that bird just broke every bone in his body. Gets up, do it again. So, probably in the wild, 8 to 10. And we think too, this is the longest distant migrant in North America. This bird's gonna fly twice a year, 7,000 miles. Add that to your lifespan. Okay? And along that journey, we have to kill things. We have to rest. We have to eat and not get eaten. So, really good question, you know. In captivity with us, peregrine falcons can probably be 15 to 18 years old. Even there's 20-year-old peregrines in a couple of zoos. So these are birds that we share the world with. And this is a great example of it. Anyone familiar with peregrines nesting on skyscrapers? Yeah. Think about that. That is the coolest darn thing ever. Let's put a big box out and they'll use it. So peregrines have been found, and we know they're on every continent except Antarctica. These birds are found everywhere. They're not uncommon. They just hit a problem with humans. And that's it. Hitting windows. But this is, you guys, this is awesome to me. As a biologist, to know that these birds will do this. And what are they after in these big cities? Anybody? Rats? Pigeons. Thank you. Yeah. And pigeons, you all carry a lot of nasty things. They're fun to feed in the city, but one of the issues with peregrines is there can be different types of problems within pigeon communities, and then the peregrines will start disappearing. And we've seen that in the past. So. Okay, peregrines, falcons. Big, wonderful group of raptors that's probably even going back, you guys, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The kings during the medieval days had to have a peregrine. The peasants would have been me. I've been flying red-tailed hawks as a falconer for a long, long time. They fly and hunt right off your fist, and they kill a rabbit, and I eat it for dinner if I were a peasant. The kings didn't need to worry about food. Okay? But there's the wing. You can see Violet's wing, and oh, you guys, that's the fastest wing that's ever evolved in our planet. Right? No other bird. So as Dylan starts putting Violet away, and the next avian ambassador comes out, any last questions, please?
Has Violet had laid eggs in captivity?
Has not. Great question. Yeah, and we don't do any breeding. We don't have, we probably have 25 permits. One, to breed these birds is a whole nother, you don't really want to get into that world. That's, yeah. Yeah, in the back.
What is Violet's age?
The way you speak up, we've got a contract right downstairs. I love that. Violet is 5 years old. Yep. And how old are you?
9.
You're 9. How old is your mom?
43.
140 something years. 43. Okay. Violet came out of an egg that big. And in 35 days, a month, not 9 years, you get Violet. Fully. No small, when that bird takes its first flight, it's not a little baby, it's fully grown. What do you think about that? I love it. Question?
What meat do you feed?
Yeah, what food are we feeding? So this is a great question. With a true varied diet, we have mice, rats, quail, we have rabbit, we have a week-old chicks that still have the yolk, and we all get it in the same place you all do, rodentpro.com. Is that buy it frozen, and it comes in, boy, these birds can eat a lot of food. Yeah. Okay, oh, yeah.
Does Violet and Partner work together?
Does Violet and,
Or Partner work together?
I love that. Do Violet and Violet's partner, Horace, God is the sky, work together? They, in the wild, peregrines will work together. That's a great question. Yeah, think about that. Two brains smarter than one sometimes, right? Okay, we better keep going, and there are questions afterwards if you could stay. I want to bring the next bird. And Vivian is one of our volunteers, and has been with us for many, many years, and is now handling birds. That's anyone, come on, volunteers. Violet has not a falcon. Okay, remember our round table, like King Arthur and the round table? Well, they're all raptors looking at each other. And here's one that's looking across, going, I like to eat mice and like the rest of you, and I'll chase a bunny. But there's one superpower. Okay? This is a hawk called a Swainson's hawk. It's a western specialist. We'll see it eastern to the Dakotas, and then west all the way to California. Not found on the East Coast. But its close cousin is, and who is that? Come on, you all have seen these birds. What's the great big hawk with a red tail? It's a red-tailed hawk, yeah. This is Papa. We've named this particular Swainson's hawk Papa based on a Latin, or excuse me, Spanish term or name. There's big, different shaped wings, not to a point, not a falcon wing. It isn't going to fly like a falcon. Okay, as long as Pava is the name, Spanish name for kettle, and this is a bird that migrates all the way down to the southern tip of Argentina. The entire population, all but maybe 10%, 90% of every individual of this species goes to the same place down in Argentina. A little quick raise of hands if anyone's thinking that could be a problem. Yeah, think about that. If there's a little problem where the entire population in the world wants to winter, let's share that story for a moment. So this is Papa. This is a bird that was unfortunately hit on the road. Papa is blind in her left eye, completely blind, and a good question would be, okay Roger, how do you know that? You actually look inside a raptor eye? Absolutely. We have avian ophthalmologists that come work with us. And as you all know, in the back of our eyeball, we have the retina. That is detached. When that just breaks, that nerve breaks, we can't use it. Raptors, we can fix bones, humerus, femurs, we can't fix the eye. And that's the problem. Typically, when we hit these birds on the road, that's the problem. So here's Paula, completely rehabilitated. Our rehab team was just inches from saying we have to euthanize this poor bird, and here we are. So a really neat, successful story, super calm. Your question earlier, you guys, that is a confident bird on a glove. Okay? Probably every one of you could have Papa on your glove over a little bit of time with Dylan's training. Yeah. So these are really important hawks. The reason is the versatility. This is a bird that will chase little lizards and small snakes on the ground. They'll actually sit on a perch and wait for hours on end and pounce on a mouse. They'll even dive on prey. They're the one that said, you know, if I can't figure out a whole number of different ways to make this work, I think I'm in trouble. And he's looking across the table at the red-tailed hawk, and the red-tail's like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna sit here all day, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Versatility. It's typically a great avenue to success. If one thing goes bad, you have the opportunity and the knowledge and the experience to go after something different. Every time, you're probably going to be great. Thus, the Swainson's Farm. Yeah. So we did talk about this migration. One of its other superpowers, other than being a versatile sort of dietary bird, is right now when they're on babies, the females are incubating, they're hatching about, they've already been hatching, some of them are about ready to fledge, is they've been eating mice and small mammals. And in about another 2 weeks, coincidentally, when the babies are starting to move, what come out of the ground? Grasshoppers, by the gazillions. Versatile, red-tailed hawk, not eating a grasshopper. These guys, yeah, you bet I will. They're everywhere. Simple, easy. Okay? So now all through the late summer in Jackson and in Wyoming, that's what they're eating. Okay? But look at what's going on way down the bottom of this screen. This is the Las Palmas region of Argentina. Okay? And this is the migration path by tens of thousands of these birds are coming twice a year. Okay? What's going on down there? This is what it looks like. It looks like Wyoming. And there are a gazillion grasshoppers down there. Okay? That's a big number. I don't know what a gazillion is. So, but what I'm trying to get at is what? If we're spraying for grasshoppers, we're in trouble. And sure enough, in the early 90s, with my research here in the park, my good colleague was in California, we put a little tracker on a Swainson's hawk. I was putting them on red-tailed hawks, and we find out, no one had known this, that he was tagging birds up in California, and they weren't coming back. What was going on? He goes down, we'll finish up this story, comes down here, they're spraying for grasshoppers. He's down there talking to the ranchers. Where are the Swainsons? They're over here. The 25,000 dead Swainson hawks. Almost 3/5, that's like over half of the entire world population were dead. They only live here. They don't live anywhere else in the world, and they're all going to the same spot. Within 3 years, we completely had that issue resolved, and they're now back. There are probably as many red tails as Swainsons right now, and vice versa. So that's the Swainson's hawk. It has a remarkable conservation story. All it was, let's go down there, we noticed the problem, let's fix it. That's all that matters, you guys. And you all know this. The Raptor Center is trying, these young, beautiful, smart, young generation coming up, find solutions. No more time to argue. We don't have time to go who did what and when. Let's just fix it. That's where we are today. That's what the new generation is going to have to be thinking about. And I think these birds are helping us do that. Okay. That is the Las Pampas region.
How did you get them to stop spraying for the grasshoppers?
Yeah, simple. Until we brought the government, there's 4 different governments, all came together at the table. As biologists, if you can get a seat at the table, you're in. Right? You've heard that whole thing, you're either on the menu or you're at the table. So we all sat together and we said, this is happening. Is there an alternative? What can we do? What if we stop using it? And sure enough, we did. It just took.
Right? Not really, right? What are these guys eating? Yeah, they're gonna eat that stuff. So a lot of times we think of raptors as sort of catching these live prey. Oh, I also should clarify. Aura is a flighted bird, so we're gonna do flights with Aura. So we just stress again on bias. If you'll notice, we're going to change mode. And it sort of simulates, the carcass upon which she would find her meal. She's quite enjoying it. But Aura has been with us for almost 2 years now. She came in August 2023. Her name comes from cathartic Bardus aura, which means cleansing breeze. That's from Latin, Bardus aura. And that refers to their value to the ecosystem as nature's beauty. Let's have you watch a flight or two. Whenever she flies and Dylan feeds her, look at the way that he feeds her. You notice how he's sort of using a fist a little bit? She's kind of getting in there. Does anybody have any idea why we would do that over maybe just some fingers? It relates to some, yeah, you got it?
I think it's because they mistake your like finger for the food or something like that.
So that is part of it, but another reason is that it sort of simulates the hole that she would find in a carcass. And there's a carcass on this next slide, just a little bit of a trigger warning. But yeah, this is where you're going to see these guys, right? They're going to ride these huge thermal bits of air in the sky for time and time again. You're going to catch that one here. We've all seen them, right? Circling in the sky, and they're going to try to use their sense of smell. So they're very interesting in that they sort of challenge those norms of raptors' hands. They don't use their intense eyesight to find their prey or their carcass. They're going to use the sense of smell that they catch from the warmer air. Any other question? Oh, sorry, what's that? That's a great question. So aura will not be released back into the wild. And we talked earlier about how our Raptors are non-releasable. And for aura, do we have anybody here from Kentucky? Worth a shot. So aura's from Louisville. She was picked up as a chick by Fish and Game. And she was actually accidentally human imprinted, which means she associates with humans from a very young age. And that's a very hard thing to successfully regress out of. And so if we released aura, she might be able to fly and find food, but she would forever see humans as a resource. She would see everybody as Dylan, essentially. But if you imagine yourself just in the park and the vulture comes and steals your sandwich, that's kind of a bad day. And so aura's going to be with us for a while. And props to Dylan because she is 4.5 pounds. She's pretty heavy for a raptor. Yeah, you have a question?
How old is she?
Aura? So Aura is about 2, right? And so she's still pretty young. Vultures in the wild can live about 16 to 20 years. There she goes. But so her stomach acid is incredibly powerful. It's about a huge. She's so awesome.
We gotta get Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all, that's, turkey vultures are just the coolest darn animals. They actually have an eye just like you and I. It's not the same eyeball as a falcon or a hawk. They see like you and I think that's why they behave in a certain way. Is they're seeing the world a little bit more. I do have a few minutes, and I want to introduce you to Brian Bedrosian, who is our research conservation director. I've been working with two of us for the last 20 years. Brian is truly one of the leading raptor ecologists on the planet today. Has been managing the Western Golden Eagle management team. And I just think to be able to hear from Brian, who is a very dear friend and who I deeply admire, about what is research? What does it mean? What does it take to do? Brian, you don't mind?
Great, thanks everybody for coming. As Roger said, I'm Brian Bedrosian. I run the research and conservation teams here at Teton Raptor Center. And as you saw in the video, this is actually Nathan, who's been on our team, and this is what we do. So I just wanted to just kind of introduce a little bit about what it means to be a biologist. You know, when I was sitting in these, when I was your age, for a lot of you younger folks sitting in the seats, I didn't even know what a bird was, let alone what a raptor was or how to study them. And now I've been here almost 25 years in Wyoming, working to conserve golden eagles and other raptors, as well as sage grouse, ravens, and spend my life out in the field like that, catching birds, putting transmitters on them, tracking them, using that information to understand what's the best of the best, You know, that information on the Las Pampas region, we learned that by tracking Swainson's hawks after they were dying and following them down there. Colleagues of ours that work with golden eagles as well. So yeah, just a little bit of background about what we do. We're out in the field almost 365 days out of the year. All the crew's actually out doing nighttime rabbit surveys as we, while they're sleeping right now, because they were doing the surveys last night out till about 5 a.m. Because what do raptors eat? Rabbits. And that's how we can understand, you know, when the rabbits crash, the eagles crash. When they come back, they come back. We're out flying hundreds of thousands of miles in little two-seater airplanes, trying to find these nests across the huge state of Wyoming. We're sitting in a blind for 8 hours a day, waiting for a goshawk to come down to our prey, or you know, a fake owl like we did the other day to take a transmitter off. It's not just putting the transmitters on, sometimes it's taking them off too. So I have the real privilege of being a biologist here. Really, you know, I just want to showcase that we've got a world-class dedicated team. We've got, you know, more than a dozen projects across Wyoming, Montana, and tracking birds from Alaska down to Mexico. And yeah, it really feeds into the conservation of these birds, feeds into the learning and the education. Everything you guys learned today was probably learned by somebody out in the field just observing the birds. And you guys can do that too. That's really what it's all about. It's just understanding and seeing. It's like, hey, there's a kestrel, there's a red tail. And just taking a moment to see it. Because really, that's what it's all about. And just appreciating it, understanding it. And to the person sitting next to you in the car or on the bike or whatever, you can say, hey, check it out. I learned about that red tail, or I learned about that Swainson's hawk. Do you know they go all the way to Argentina? How awesome is that? And so, really, that's what it's all about. I'm happy to take any questions about what it's like, you know, to take 2 years to catch my first raven, or you know, to see an eagle come in at 90 miles an hour. It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful, and we're just glad to be able to share some of that experiences with you guys. Yeah.
What level of education did you need to get to this point as a biologist?
Yeah, that's a great question on what it took for my education to become where I'm at. So I have just a college degree in biology, and then after I learned I wanted to do this, I actually got the privilege of somebody saying, hey, you want to go catch a goshawk? And I was like, yeah, I do. I get in the back seat of his car. He's got a great horned owl sitting next to me. I was like, what the heck? Whatever this is, I want to do this for the rest of my life. So I did end up, I did go get a graduate degree. I have a master's. I studied ravens here for that degree, but I don't have a PhD, even though I'm adjunct faculty at University of Wyoming. Like, you can work your way up, and you know, it's just a lot of hard work and perseverance. And I just have a degree in biology. I wanted to keep it broad in case I wanted to teach high school or something like that. But I learned, you know, all the nuance of raptors and raptor ecology and wildlife ecology just through doing work. I did my undergraduate in Wisconsin, and then I did my master's work in Arkansas. Even though I was doing my research here, I just needed a place to go to school. So being 24 hours away from your study site, not ideal, but you know, is a pathway to where we need to be. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Anyone else?
When did GPS tracking become available for research? Had you do research before that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, Roger and I we actually pioneered a lot of the GPS tracking technology. I actually created, I had an NSF grant, and I created my own GPS trackers. I created all the methodologies for use in sage grouse, along with raptors. I created there's a breakaway technique now that we just do a little cotton stitch in the backpack of the transmitter that goes on an eagle, so it falls off. You know, you don't want a transmitter that only works for 3 years sitting on a bird that can live for 30, right? So really that all started in about 2000, 2001. It didn't really take off until about 2010, 2012. When we first started, the transmitters were pretty large, but because they're on birds, they can be solar recharged, because you know they're sitting on the back, they're flying, and so we can recharge them solar. We have transmitters now that have been active for 10 years on bird that we tracked during migration. But initially, those little units were $4,000 a piece. Yeah, imagine buying $4,000 and then putting it on an eagle and saying, I hope this works. Because just like with pushing technology and everything, it didn't always work. The failure rate was pretty high initially, which really, really was unfortunate. But now I can get data, sub-second data on an eagle. I can actually watch an eagle go up in a thermal using the GPS tracks. And it's got three-dimensional gyroscopic sensors. So I can tell if a bird's perched. As soon as it starts flying, then it starts getting those sub-second fixes. I know if it hits prey, I know if it's successful, I know if it's not. So we're using that kind of information to understand the effects of disturbance on birds. When is a adult female golden eagle flushed off her nest from, say, a biker or a hiker coming by? And how do we use that to identify the area around the nest to protect, to reduce her disturbance? So it's not just like the large-scale habitat tracking, it's some of the really fine-scale detailed behaviors. And now we're even going so far as to understand how the adults are teaching their young. How the adults are teaching their young where to go, what to hunt, what to avoid, and what to use. And so it's really exciting technology that's been ever evolving, and I'm sure it will evolve even more. We're down to now like 1 gram transmitters that can get GPS fixes. And so that's about the size we can fit on a route and even smaller. Yeah.
One time when I was out in the park, we saw a golden eagle. We looked up the first, so it had a snake in its talons. Then it dropped with a stick.
Yeah.
And it swooped down and grabbed it, flew up again, and did it probably 5 or 6 times all over lunch. Was it playing or practicing?
I think it's both. I've seen that actually quite a bit. We have a migration station where we watch the golden eagles migrate down from Canada down into the lower 48. And we see that oftentimes they'll have a stick and they'll actually drop it. We use pigeons to bring them in. They'll drop it and see if they can flush the bird so they can grab it. Or we've also seen them in pairs playing, and we see this with ravens a lot, but I have seen it with goldens where they'll play keyboard. One will go up, they'll drop the stick, the other one will come down and grab it in midair, go up, drop it, and they're just, I think they're playing. And play is a great learning tool. We use it as a learning tool, so do animals.
For several years, we would have an owl come on a house at night, and we would hear it. It's been years since we've seen an owl hooting in our neighborhood or on our house. What's going on?
I mean, it could be anything, the birds, when we see birds, oftentimes, and they repeatedly year after year, it's likely they have a territory there. But, a lot of things happen to these birds. It's hard to make a living out in the wild, and if it died, sometimes those territories aren't replaced, particularly if it's near houses and other birds aren't used to that. Some birds get more used to people than others do. And so it's hard to say, but all we can say is, I know in our work, we use that hooting a lot to understand where they are, how many there are. And we can even now identify an individual owl based on its vocal fingerprint. So just like we can now, we can use voice recognition for owls. That's how we find them out in the woods, and that's how we can sense them now and track them without even having to tag them, which is awesome. A nice non-invasive way to do some research.
We'll take one more question. Yeah.
So, Wade, I'm curious now how much GPS track costs, but I'm also curious as to how you're navigating changing science funding landscape.
Yeah, so we're talking about like what's going on with science funding, how do we navigate that, how are we helping our partners, how are we helping ourselves to continue this work, because it's really important. The good thing about the cost of transmitters, which you asked about, is they're now coming down. They're about $1,200 to $1,800 a piece, depending on the technology and the size. So that's down. It's still ridiculously expensive when you want to try and get 50 or 100 transmitters out. The funding piece it's tough. I will say we are currently picking up the pieces of projects to monitor the population of golden eagles in Wyoming, for example. The service used to do that, they can't anymore. We have now picked that up. So, we rely on donations and donors like you guys, so going down to the shop and purchasing something for a present or for yourself helps us and helps fund us. Also, any additional support for that is always helpful. But yeah, state and federal agencies are definitely hurting these days, and they're relying more and more on organizations like Teton Raptor Center and other nonprofits to help pick up those pieces. So we're doing the best we can, and hopefully we can maintain some of these longer data sets that are really important to understand what's going on. So thank you.
Brian.
just gotta wrap things up, Walt. We have kept you right to the last minute. There are years of stories. If you'd like to stay around and ask, we would love that. But two things as you leave, and then I'll hand it over to Dylan, is that we do have 3 other programs. Well, if you're here in the Valley, and I mean it, it's because we truly love this stuff. We take a deep dive into migration on another one of our programs. We take a deep dive into the different habitat types and how these birds are in and around our human-built environment. We have a whole other program on some of the more remarkable adaptations to these raptors. So please come back and learn more and more about what we're talking about today. And I think as Dylan, I'll let Dylan ask, is the question of why.
Yeah, so why should we care about our raptors? And I'm actually asking all of you, so when it comes to these birds, especially from what you just learned here today, why should we care? Do you have any ideas? Yeah, you have one. Because they're beautiful birds. That is actually one of the best answers I've had, so great job. Yeah, awesome. So they're beautiful birds, but also they're animals that we should care about because they're also known as being bioindicators. So what does that mean? It means that if, say, a population of rodents is declining, one of the first things to go would actually be our raptors. So if a habitat or an ecosystem, so a place where they live, is not healthy, that's where they're going to be one of the first birds to disappear. So that's why here at the Raptor Center, we focus on education, research, rehabilitation, so we can keep these raptor populations thriving, but also to inspire folks to care about these birds because we couldn't do any of this work without each and every one of you. Even just coming here today, learning about raptors, talking about these birds with you, that's a way that we can care about these birds. So even something as simple as like attending a raptor presentation helps a lot. But anyways, I want to thank you so much for coming. And as you walk outside, make sure that you're looking for some of these birds in the wild, like either peregrine falcons, vultures, or swings and hawks. All those birds you can see actually out here, maybe in the Tetons or the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So with that, I thank you, and remember to look up to the skies.